Good day, good people. This is Dr. Hetheru, your personal change coach and village elder, and I like to welcome you to our lessons for the journey. And today we are still talking about where it all began. And I think this is an important direction because I really want our listeners to be able to go back and reflect on some things in your journey and on your path that you may not have seen the same way or may not have seen as significant. But I really would like to encourage you to entrust me with this part of this journey. So I'm going to share some things today that might be, it could be a little bit controversial for some people. I want to talk about the crossroads between religion and metaphysics. And I'm speaking for myself and some of the things that I've experienced along my journey that are surreal for a lot of people. Some people may not believe that it's possible, but in this season that we're in this new age that we are in the age of Aquarius. And part of what that means is that the spiritual gifts, the physical gifts, the metaphysical gifts, the search for truth and understanding, and the separation from let's say those things that are in us that are of the light and those things that are of the dark. And when I'm talking, I don't want you to think that this is about judgment. Judgment meaning good, bad, right, or wrong. This is not about judgment because a lot of this is in our past history. And our past history we cannot change, but it's there for us to reflect on. It's there for us to learn from and grow. And so this crossroads that I experienced in my journey, and this is still for me where it all began, because I've had some very interesting things that I've experienced in my lifetime. One of the things that, and I'm just going to throw a couple of things out there to get your juices flowing. So one is that if you are familiar with the Akashic records are like your lifetimes since the beginning of time, your life and your lifetime. So it's like your own personal library of all the stories and every choice, every decision, every experience that you've ever had, not just in this lifetime, but in past lifetimes, right? And so I've been to a friend's Akashic records, which is a no-no. You're not supposed to be able to go into other people's records, but I did. And the experience that I had was a very awakening experience. And another aspect of that was that I had that same experience with multiple people at the same time. So we all were in meditation or that dream state, and we all met at a place, and these were my nephews. So each one of us, all but one of them, and it was about 6 of us together. So each one of them, but one made it to the same space. And we all had conversations about being in that space and what it was like. And we all had the same details. One of my nephews couldn't make his way there because of his mindset. And so, and his lack of belief or his lack of trust in the process. So when I say I've had a number of experiences, I've had out-of-body experiences, I've had the experience, and I'm sure some of you have had this too, and sometimes we brush it off as, oh, that wasn't real, that was a dream, that was a vision, it was whatever you might think, or whatever reasons you might need to justify it being what it is. And so in this age of Aquarius, those miraculous types of things, those unbelievable types of things, whether they're gifts, whether they're your abilities, they are awakening in you. And so we have to be empowered. We have to be knowledgeable. We have to use wisdom and discernment as we utilize these gifts, as we utilize our abilities and these experiences. So I'm just here to, for those of you who have had these experiences, I'm here to affirm that. I would love to have the conversation about it. So if you are one who has had these types of experiences and you have nowhere to go to have this conversation, reach out to me. My phone number is 313 759-7855. I really would like to continue my study and elevation groups. I suspended it for a while because I needed more people to be involved, because I know this season people can get lost in the process. They can get lost in confusion. They can get lost in a lot of these things and then have the experience of then disbelief. I don't believe that it really happened. All of these things, like people have right now, I have a list of gifts. So these are some of the gifts you might see on X-Men or superheroes. But I have a list of 25 of those gifts that I am personally a witness to, and people who have those gifts that I've met and experienced them. And so I have a person in my life right now who has a gift of, she has an influence on the weather. So whenever she is melancholy, sad, the weather reflects that. So if you're kind of in the Detroit area right now today, it may be a little bit humid outside, but it's a little bit dark for this time of day. So I would reach out to her to see, because she's one of the people, I mean, I know it's multiple people, but she's one of the ones that I can predict the weather by her mood and her, it's because it's so intense, and because she's such a giving person and she's so connected to nature that you can see it reflected in her. So when the sun is out, she's out. When the sun is overcast or the sky is overcast, so is she. And so it's just one of the gifts, and I witness it all the time. So if you believe it or not, that's okay. But it is an experience that I witnessed personally. So when I talk about the crossroads of religion and metaphysics, I want to lift up some of the gifts and abilities. And these are things that are biblical. And I'm going to go through this list. So this particular list that I have is a list of 18. So there's the spiritual gifts that are lifted up in the Bible. You might find between 7 and my list of 18. So the way that you might see this list and what you might hear, I'm not trying to convince you. I'm trying to encourage you that the biblical principles say that the reason you have these gifts, or the way that you get these gifts, is through the Holy Spirit. So if you are a person of religion, and it depends on where you are in your religious walk, and this is not about insulting. This is not about good, bad, right, or wrong. I'm sharing information. And so I want to make sure that you have that opportunity to share in this with me. And I'm gonna call out these 18. This particular list came from Tyndale, which is one of the publishing companies. And so I wanted to make sure that just kind of as we go in this direction, that you're able to keep up with me, that you're able to open yourself up to these ideas, and then how these ideas are used and practiced in a spiritual way and also in a metaphysical way. So, and let me start by saying, when I talk about metaphysics, I'm really talking about the study of reality, the study of your individual place in the world, your self-discovery. And so when you look at what your reality is and really start to unpack it like I do often, looking back in your meridian path, looking back in your experiences, looking back for the wisdom, looking back for your why and your how and how that impacts your life today, that's a practice of metaphysics. And so it also is a way to look at how you as an individual, how and why you exist in this world. That's another way to look at the study of metaphysics, and that's how I use it. And so with that in mind, I'm going to call out these 18 gifts, and I'm going to give you the insight that they gave when I looked up this information. Again, my source is Tyndale, and this is from an article called Unfolding Faith. And so it says, what are the spiritual gifts that God has given to his people? Here's a list, and this list of 18. So I'm going to use these. The first one is administration. Number 2, being an apostle. Number 3, discernment. 4, evangelism. 5, exhortation. 6, faith. 7, giving. 8, healing. 9, helps. 10, hospitality. 11 is knowledge. 12 is leadership, 13, mercy, 14, prophecy, 15, serving, 16, speaking in tongue, 17, teaching, and 18 is wisdom. So some of these, may be obvious in terms of their meaning, but I'm going to give you the examples that they gave. So administration says the ability to help steer the church ministry toward a successful completion of God's given goals with the skills in planning, organization, and supervision. So that's administration. An apostle is a person sent to new places, it says, with the gospel. You may have, and apostles can also provide leadership to other churches or ministries and offer advice on spiritual matters. Discernment, the wisdom to recognize truth from untruth by correctly evaluating whether a behavior or teacher is from God or from another source. Evangelism, the ability to successfully communicate the message of the gospel, especially to non-believers. Exhortation, competence in offering encouragement, comfort, and support to someone, for God to, let me put this right, and support to someone to be all that God wants them to be. Faith, people with this gift have such great confidence in the power and promises of God that they can stand on their beliefs no matter what may come and try to shake them. Giving, those who have this gift are particularly willing to be able to share what resources they have with pleasure and without the need to see them returned. Healing, a capacity used to restore others, whether that's physical, emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. Helps, someone with this gift is able to support or assist members of the body of Christ so that they may be free to minister to others. Hospitality, a natural ability to make people, even strangers, feel welcome in one's own home and to be able to disciple or serve them. Knowledge, this is the gift of someone who actively pursues knowledge, and it says knowledge of the Bible. This person may also enjoy analyzing biblical data. Leadership, this aptitude marks a person who's able to stand before a church to direct the body with care and attention and to motivate them toward achieving the church's goal. Mercy, this is the defining trait of a person with great sensitivity for those who are suffering. It manifests itself in offering compassion and encouragement and love for giving practical help to someone in need. Prophecy, the ability to speak the message of God to others, sometimes involves foresight or vision or what is to come. Serving is the talent for identifying tasks that is needed and being able to have the resources to get them done. And then the last three here are speaking in tongue, which is the supernatural ability to speak in another language and one that has not been learned. Teaching, the skill to teach and communicate effectively for understanding and spiritual growth of others. And then finally, wisdom, the gift of being able to sort through facts and data to discover what needs to be done. So I know that was a lot of reading, but I wanted you to kind of listen to what they actually mean. And what I also want you to do, I'm going to go through the list one more time. I want you to find, of these 18 gifts, how many of them do you use in your life today? And I'm not talking about you have to declare a particular religion. I'm speaking to you to look at your skills and your abilities, because I want you to see where your crossroads between religion and metaphysics are. And so for administration, so people who are really good at organizing, running a business, running your household, some of the other traits they talked about administration, to help with planning goals, organizing, and supervising a process to be completed. That's administration. So sometimes that shows up on your job and the work or the title that you assume in your everyday life. Apostle was a person that goes to different places. It said they spread the word. They could be described as apostles, not apostles. And they also provide leadership, but that's somebody who travels and does that. So it could be in your work, it could be in your purpose, it could be in your ministry. But I don't want you to be limited. I just want you to connect with the traits. I want you to connect with the characteristics. Discernment, which I think is really important, is the wisdom to recognize the truth from the untruth and correctly evaluate whether the behavior is a godlike behavior or ungodly behavior. So, you can use your sense of discernment, especially right now in this presidential election. If you are using discernment, I'm not talking about logic, I'm not talking about reason, although those can show up too. But when you use your sense of discernment, that means, let me say it again, it's the wisdom to recognize truth from untruth and to correctly evaluate whether the behavior or teaching is from God or from another source. Clearly, if you're using discernment, then you can see truth versus untruth. The next one is evangelism, the ability to successfully communicate a message, especially to those who don't believe. So when you think about when you're trying to share something with somebody, here's a good one. I'm just going to use food as an example. I talk a lot about how important it is for people to drink water, just to hydrate. I could give you a list of reasons why that's important, but there's always somebody that's going to say, well, I don't really need to drink that much water. I don't need to drink that much water. But when I ask them a certain question or certain questions about how they think or what they do or what is your day like? And I can show them in that process where if they had water, they may not have made the same kind of irrational decision, or they may not have, they may have had the energy to continue to go instead of having to always stop and sit down and rest, or even in your thinking that you can't process information like that. And so anyway, it's just another way to be able to, and it's not really about convincing somebody. It is connecting with someone, and not just that they're taking your word for it, but they're taking it in and using that to grow. So, I know I could go on with this, but I do want you to consider the list of 18. So I'm going to tell you again. So I stopped on evangelism. So exhortation, and that's really, it says competence in offering encouragement, comfort, and support to someone. To encourage them to be what God wants them to be. Not what I want them to be, but what God wants them to be. That's already in us. We just have to have that encouragement to draw it out. We have to have someone mirror that thing for us to help us draw it out. So these are some of the things as a personal change coach, which is amazing to me, that I'm able to do because I have many of these spiritual gifts. But that's why I talk about the way that I might go about working with an individual client. What makes me different from another life coach or a counselor or a therapist. And that's not to discourage you from doing either of those, but my process is a little bit different. My process involves these gifts. And I think that any of us that are working with people need to have these gifts active and ready to use. And be used. Be the vessel for the use of these gifts. So when I talk about the crossroads of religion and metaphysics, I'm lifting these things up because often we forget who we are. We forget who we are on the journey, and we get so wrapped up in the title that we have and the role that we play that we forget that we are a combination of all of these gifts. They're all available to all of us at our fingertips. When you're in right standing, right? And I mean by right standing, when your intentions are in the right place, when you're connected and rooted in your source, then your source can use you in a way that you may not even have known was possible for you. And so I think this is really important that as you look at these, and you can look these up, you can do a search, a Google search if you like, and look up the spiritual gifts and find yourself in that gift. Because it's something not only just to be aware of, but it is something that you can build with confidence and be proud of who you are, because our identity is really important to our mental health and our mental awareness. So I want you to, that's my challenge to you, is look up the principles. You may find up to 18. You may find 7. So your numbers may vary depending on the resource that you're using in terms of, the resource that you're using, if it's Google, and if you're using the Bible itself, or if you're using some other tool. So the crossroads for this is often when you look at and take personality tests. Right? It talks about what are your likely attributes? What are your likely gifts? What are your likely abilities? They help you to also hone that in. So what you could do is use that personality test and temperament tests. You can use that, and you can also line that up against the spiritual gifts. Then you have a way to look at who you are from a different lens, but also be confident in the things that you are and who you are, and the gifts and abilities that you have at your fingertips. So I want to talk a little bit about how this is applied to my life outside of my coaching, but applied to my journey, because for me, this conversation is about where it all began. And so for me, I had these types of experiences being much younger. I shared with you before, I'm the middle child, really, of 7 plus 1, because I have a cousin that's also raised as a sister. But I'm the middle child. And so there are a group of my siblings below me. There are a group of my siblings above me. And for me, I've always been, as far back as I can remember, I've always been serving my family. So hospitality has always been a part of my journey. Helps has also always been a part of my journey, and serving has always been a part of my journey. Like, as far back as I can remember, and I talk about being 2 and 3 years old because that was a significant time for me. So there were 3 things that were really important to me at that time in my life and my journey. 1, I loved to see people kiss. 2, I loved cows. And the 3rd thing I loved was serving my family. These things were so very important to me. So I remember having a gift for Christmas one year, and I got an apron, I got a little broom, and I got the little hat that you wear. And so I guess I was a housekeeper then. I'm thinking it was a nurse, but I think I was a housekeeper then. And so I took that role very seriously. So I was always sweeping with my little broom, or I morphed into a nurse and a waitress. And so I always had a little notepad with me and a little pencil. I couldn't read and I couldn't write at that time. So I'm like two, almost 3 years old. And I tell this story often, but I think it's funny. But this is about where I began. So I went into everybody. I always did this. Went and took their orders. What will you have for dinner today? And I, write my little note on my notepad, and I take it to my mom. So this particular day, I took the note to my mom, and she was like, "I can't read that. That's just scribbled on the paper." And I was hurt and disappointed because this was my job. She was affecting my job. This was my identity. And so from that, I was hurt and disappointed. And so I went to my sister, my oldest sister, and I was like, "You have to teach me how to read and write, because I got to take these orders. I got to write prescriptions," because, I was a nurse. So I had to write prescriptions. And so when my sister taught me how to read and write. And so by the time I was 3, I could read and I could write very fluently. And so it affected my journey because the love for reading and writing was established through that. And I started to read very early, and I was sounding out words. Because of those things, I was at the doctor's office and I was reading my chart. The doctor had walked out and written some things down, because I was always at the doctor's office for something silly. Anyway, so I'm reading the chart, and the doctor comes back in and he's like, "Is she reading?" My mom's like, "Yeah." And he was like, she's reading. She must be a genius, right? And so some opportunities opened. My doctor referred me to a gifted and talented program. And it was actually, my family could not afford to send me to the gifted and talented program. I got invited to be a Sesame Street kid reading it. So I had opportunity to be placed in that. And because of not just my family's income ability to afford taking me to that, I believe it was Country Day. I believe that was the school. But also the opportunity to go to Sesame Street. So we got the first script, I went to the audition, and the way that the kids my age were behaving, extremely disrespectful, bratty. My mom was like, there is no way I'm putting you in this environment. So Sesame Street got taken off the table. Of course, we couldn't afford the expense of the school, so that got taken off the table. But to be declared as a child genius at that time was really an interesting part of my journey. But what it did, none of that had anything to do with just being a genius. It all had to do with the fact that I had a gift to serve, of hospitality. And those things were what was really important to me. I had no interest in doing those other things. It was interesting especially when it was about Sesame Street, but it did not, for me, it didn't take away from who I was, because I was this already. And so, but what it did for me early in my life was it gave me the love for reading and writing. And so by the time I was 6 years old, I wrote an essay about the family that loved each other, and I won first place in the city competition among all the schools. And my work was published in a book. And so it was really exciting so this is my backstory, right? This was one of my crossroads. And so what it did for me at that age stayed with me in my life, in my journey. I've always been a writer. I've always enjoyed reading, and at different times and seasons in my life, I consume large volumes of information. So I could read, like right now, I'm kind of in that season where I'm taking in a lot of information. This is my large volume. So I can read a few books in a couple days and in a day. Like I've read this week, probably 3 books already. Where are we? This is Thursday. Yeah. So I mean, I love the reading, but because of the amount of information that I consume, that's just reading leisurely. I do a lot of research. I do a lot of writing. I do a lot of those types of activities anyway, but this is in the midst of that. So it's always amplified for me. But my capacity to read and write and to take in large information allows me to do and be who I am today. And the work that I do, that's why I can do multiple things with multiple organizations, multiple businesses, because of that ability that was cultivated in me early in my life. So again, we're talking about this not just for my journey, but how you look back in your own. What are some of the things that influenced you early in your life, where it all began, that are influential in your life today? What are those things that led you to that? So maybe you were young and you love pastries and you love to help bake cookies or bake biscuits and those kinds of things. But you can see that now in your adult life, like you are the person that everybody goes to for the dinner rolls or the cookies or whatever that might be. There's a reason behind that, and there's a gift attached to that. So underneath that gift, what is that special ability that you have? And then as you look at that, you're able to find even your superpower. What is that miraculous thing that you can do that is somewhat out of the ordinary, but allows you to be the unique individual that you are? And so when you think about that, it's another crossroads, because you have the opportunity to draw the tribe of people who also have that gift or ability to you. And so we talk about that often about when we look at our reality. And again, this is the study of metaphysics that I'm speaking of. when we start to examine our own existence and our reality and looking back at the cues and clues as to who you are and why. So the things that I just shared with you about my interest in hospitality, kissing, I love cows. I really do love cows. I have one on my wall, a little a cow sticker, and it looks like a cow's body. It looks like the head is like sticking around the corner. It's just so cute. I love it. Anyway, but it's a part of who I am now. And so because of that, it has affected my journey. It has affected who I am, why I am, how I am today. And I want to encourage you to continue to do that level of reflection. I encourage you to put that information that is exposed or revealed in a journal so that you have it to refer back to. When those things come up and come out, make sure you're journaling that. It's a keystone to your understanding of you. You're writing your own book. You're writing your own story as you capture those things in the journal. And I'm just going to give you this one bit of information that I think was so important when I think about the Bible. And I learned that the Bible is a collection of letters. It's a collection of somebody's thoughts that captured it, and they put those together. These are not the only thoughts in that collection. These are not the only ones, because different cultures have a different version of what they consider the Bible. So the different letters or epistles that make up the Bible are also different from community and cultures. So it's expansive. You may not have all the books in your Bible. The Catholic Bible is different from the Ethiopian Bible, is different from the King James Bible. All of those things are different, but they're different for a reason. So I just want you to be aware. What it really is a collection of those works. It's a collection of the letters, the thoughts, the experiences from others. And some of it is the record of the time. But guess what? Somebody had to write it down first. So maybe that somebody is you for our future. And I am learning that as we go. And it also helps you to tell your story as it relates to your memoirs, as it relates to your family history. That is another way to look at the Bible. So I went in search of, which was really important to me, I went in search of who was Jesus' family line. And when I got down to the end, I followed it. So it took me about somewhere close to 10 months to go all the way through the Bible from the beginning to the end, because I was looking for something specific. So I was looking for the genealogy of Christ. I wanted to know who his family was. And when I got to the end, it implied that the family line that I was following was Joseph's family line. That was really insightful to me, because Joseph wasn't supposed to be his biological father, right? God the Father was Jesus' father. And so on the physical level, there had to be a connection. So that was something that was interesting to me. That helped me to be able to know for myself. Part of this journey is the things that you know for yourself. Part of this journey is your experience and your why. That's the metaphysics of your reality. That's the metaphysics of your existence. And if you don't know that because it's not written, if you don't know that because it's not said or shared, you need to have a space where you can find it, because that helps us build our confidence. It helps us build our identity and our understanding of who we are and why we are. A lot of those things that happen along our journey is to prepare us for the things to come. For the things to come. It may not have happened yet, but you can believe that those experiences are not just for you, just like the Bible and those letters. They were not just for the people who wrote them or the ones of the time. Those things have lasted over time and affect many of us today because they wrote it down. And so I encourage you to do that. Use that particular gift and ability to make sure that you're journaling. If you don't have a journal, I'm going to challenge you too. If you don't have one, reach out to me, make that phone call. I have some journals that I keep because I believe everybody should have one. I have journals that if you need one, and you have to have a conversation with me, though. If you need that journal, reach out. Again, my number is 313-759-7855. One more time, 313-759-7855. Give me a call, and I will make sure you have a journal in your hand. Okay, so I want to talk about today also at our crossroads is the understanding of the possibilities. So in our possibilities, so when you think of a crossroads, you're looking at a four-way stop. Let's just say a basic four-way stop. That when a car comes up to the four-way stop, there's a right-of-way, right? The person to the right or the person directly across from you, they go first and then they move from the right. So then the person on the right goes, and the person ahead of you goes, and the person on the left, and then you, right? So there's a system behind the crossroads. There are choices, and each road that you might take, if you go right, if you go straight, if you go left, you can go back, but it's not advisable to go back because you only have a narrow view of going back. In terms of moving, in terms of a direction. When you move backward, there are consequences to moving backward. And I'm not talking about reflection, because when we talk about reflection, we're looking in a rear view mirror or a side view mirror. We're not turning completely around and moving back. There's a difference. There's a difference. And so if we're going ahead, straight ahead, that's a decision and a possible outcome. If we go to the right, that's another decision and possible outcome. If we go to the left, you're right, another decision and possible outcome. These are important insights to have because wisdom and discernment must show up here so that you know what's the best way to turn. Or do you turn at all, or do you continue straight? That's another crossroad in our lives. That's another crossroad if you decide that I want to go to school, I want to get a degree, or I want to get a certification. Those decisions are right, left, or directly in front of you. Those alignments, then you cross other roads. So once you go right, you're going to cross other roads. You're going to meet other people. You're going to find out who you are in that space. You're going to get a title. You're going to have a role to play. Those things happen at the crossroads. They start there, but they don't necessarily end there. The goal is to recognize that you have reached that point, that there's a new road to take, that there's a new chapter in your life, there's a new season in your direction, and there are new possibilities that go along with that. So your life doesn't have to be like Groundhog Day. You wake up the next day and it's the same thing over again. You can choose to do something different. You can choose to be different. You don't have to be, if you were afraid yesterday, you don't have to go into today being afraid. There are tools that you can use. There are people that you can talk to. There are motivational communications out there for you. There are other things that you can use. And if you're unsure, I encourage you to look at multiple sources. So you can read. You can talk to somebody. You can reach out to a therapist or a counselor or a coach. You can read a book for some insight. For the self-help books, we have lots of those out there. For whatever topic, for whatever challenge you are facing, there is a resource or a tool out there to help you. So you don't have to try to navigate this alone. You don't have to navigate this alone. And you don't have to keep using the same people over and over again, because they may not have what you need, or they may not see you and the way that you need them to see you to help you navigate your next steps. So be encouraged that there are possibilities, multiple possibilities, and multiple realities for you when you choose. And the more that you know about yourself, and if you have to you look through your rearview mirror to do your reflection work, do that. Do that self-work, because we sometimes get lost when we say we want to change, or we want to be different, we actually have to do the work to start that process. Often in our backstory, often in our fear or our hesitation, often in our identity, who we want to be versus who we are. You can get there, and you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to do it alone. And again, if you need that assistance, this is what I do as a personal coach, but it's also what I do as a village elder. As a village elder, this is about having a new mindset. We can't go back to the communities that we once had, but we can rebuild that with this identity, with this idea, with this direction, who and what we are now, who and what we need now. That's what we have to use. That's what we have to do. And we've been guided to be who we are today. And I'm an example of that. I shared with you my experiences with that. These are what are the lessons for the journey. These are the tools that we need to help us to continue to move forward, to be who we are meant to be, because we are the change we want to see in our world. We are the change. We have to do it. There's nobody coming to save you. You are part of a network of influence. You're part of a network of talent, skills, gifts, abilities. This is what's here for you. If you have the right lens, if you have the right perspective, if you're on the right frequency, be on the frequency of the change you want to be, and then understand what it feels like to be there, to be the change, to be a part of a culture, to be a part of a village, to be a part of a tribe that's moving change forward in the ways that you want to see, not the things that you don't want. And it's one of the things, if you were a part of the show before, when we had my Aunt Sabah on the show, she talks about speaking what you want, not what you don't want. When we speak what we want, it puts us on the frequency of the thing that we want. If you continuously say, I'm sick and tired, I'm tired of this, I'm tired of that, and you keep using the word tired, guess what? You are on that frequency of tired. And then when your feelings start to affirm that, and you agree with the frequency and the feeling, that's what manifests in your life. Things that make you sick and tired. So know what you want and resonate on that frequency. So that frequency then becomes that crossroad in your life to make sure that the possibilities of what you want start to be drawn to you. Let that be part of what you feel. You got to feel it to manifest the things that you want. I wanted to share these lessons for the journey because I believe that they're going to help people navigate this new age and new time that we're in. In order for me to do that, I had to resonate at this frequency where I was able to meet my producer. I was able to meet Chantel because she's already on this frequency. And when we were there, how I felt being there, my comfort in sharing my journey and my story allowed the lessons for the journey, this part of a podcast, to emerge. That's what manifested from the frequency and the feeling of wanting to share this journey, to share this work in a way that I believe may not be expressed already. So you can manifest that. Your crossroads opens up the possibilities. And I want you to leave with that thought. Let your crossroads open up the possibilities. But there are still things that you have to do to activate this process. One, use your rearview mirror. Use your side view mirrors. Look back into your journey as far back as you can. Look into your meridian path where you were going straight and you turned right or left or kept straight. Look at those spaces, especially in the things that you're curious about right now, especially in the places that you want to be and have healthy relationships or experiences. One of the reasons, and I mentioned the third thing that I did when I was younger, was cows, kissing, and serving. So because I love to kiss, guess what? That's a big part of my journey. That has been a big part of my identity, and to have connections with people. So it went beyond a kiss. I love hugs. And if you've been around me and you know me, I am a hugger. And it's a real, authentic hug that I give you. I don't do surface. So I don't do the pat on the back. I don't do the church hug. I embrace you because I'm giving you the good energy that I know exists between us. And I know what it means when people touch and embrace, and that energy, that synergy between them, that spark gives you that extra something that you may have needed. It gives you an extra lift, and you know that you are loved. You know that you are connected. I think that's a really important way that we communicate with each other, that's physical, that's meaningful, and that's actually helpful. Because if you are feeling lower than you could be, I don't want my energy to make you feel lower. I need it to lift you, right? And when we look at our gifts, we look at our spiritual gifts, that's a gift of healing. That's a gift of giving. It's a gift of faith. It's a gift of mercy. It's a gift of serving. All of that is in a hug and an embrace or in a kiss. And sometimes I can't help it. If I'm hugging you, I might kiss you too. But that's a part of what's already in me. It's a part of what I understand about me, what I understand about frequency and vibration. I know it's necessary. And because I've been given that sense of peace, which I'll have to tell you that story. Once I get that sense of peace, was gifted to me. It's one of my spiritual gifts. Peace is one of my spiritual gifts. So I have a gift to be able to give to others. Just a sense of peace, a space of peace, words of peace, encouragement through peace. All of that is important. And I want you to leave with the idea that you need to do your own level of self-exploration, because it's there. It's there at your crossroads. What is the question that you want to ask about you today? I want you to get your journal and write that down. In your journal, what crossroad are you facing today? What are the potential possibilities, and where is it in your backstory that either is the beginning, origin, or the thing that you need to reflect on, because the answer can be unraveled in that backstory. So this is Dr. Hetheru, your personal change coach and village elder, and I hope and I pray that something that I said today helped you to navigate in this intricate space that we're in. And remember the time that we're in and the age that we're in, and the things that are happening to you are supposed to happen in this age and this time, because it's designed to get us to move differently, to utilize our gifts, our talents, our abilities for the greater good of humanity. Gifts are to be given. And so I hope that, again, that you have your journal, and that the next time we meet, you'll have your journal. If you don't, you're supposed to reach out to me and make sure I get you a journal before our next event. And to encourage you to stay with us, stay clear. Take good care.